I'm sometimes very tired of listening to myself.
Are you aware of that?
I try to be, but of course it's my voice that is the main voice at the training ground. And then I think, can I develop a little bit? So also sometimes can we get a new coach into the coaching team sometimes. They also come with a new drill. So it's always a little bit refreshing things. So I'm aware of that. And as you say, the style, I need to change things to also keep myself on it.
Hence the slightly shift this season.
Yeah. So that's a little bit back to my mindset. I always wanted to play offensive football, and we started last season. It's a combination of what's best for the players we got. We have this style, but what kind of players? Because I can't pick all the best players in the world. So that's one thing. But also to keep developing the team. So this season, for example, we got Mikkel Damsgaard in the team. Give something different to the team. Add something, and I think added a good layer.
He's got a real quality.
Fantastic quality. We got Stefan Vandenberg, also changed the dynamic a little bit. So I think that way is also a part of developing the team. And then...
There you go. And here we are here. Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we are back. It's a busy, busy week on Last Word on Spurs. The shows are getting bigger. The guests, say it quietly, they're getting bigger as well. And we're building up for the crescendo of the arrival of Thomas Frank. And I know for a lot of people out there, they are full on in Frank fever. Welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. I'm joined by, like I say, our top tier panel who are going to be giving their thoughts and opinions on the incoming man himself, Thomas Frank, who we understand is now hours away from being named Tottenham Hotspur's new head coach, giving their thoughts, giving their opinions on this Last Word on Spurs. He's back home and beyond happy. TJ Ramini is back on the screen. TJ, he's returned to that lovely seat of his. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. It's lovely to be back on the show. An illustrious panel, as you said. I'm looking forward to not only sharing opinions, but also being enlightened. I've been listening to all of the episodes, and it's been beyond dramatic, but also really illuminating and really informative. So I'm in fabulous company. Very much looking forward to the show, and it's lovely to see everybody. Quickly, actually, before we start, obviously I was home recently, went to the parade, did all that kind of thing. I was separated from my lovely Last Word family by a matter of feet, and I couldn't get to them. And so many people in the crowds showed me so much love and so much consideration, and also literally ushered me through to the Last Word family. So thank you to all of those people that I met. Lovely, lovely people. I was so proud and happy that we have largely such a supportive, loving, compassionate, understanding fan base. So a very personal thank you from me to all of those lovely people. Thank you so much. Looking forward to a great show.
You too, TJ. I must just say, I think the 7-foot frame of Pat did help us in that situation of that parade. I have to give some credit.
He was a shining beacon. I was like, if only I could get to Patrick. He was like Wilson floating away in the water in Castaway. But still, without those people who helped me through, I never would have got to you, whether he's 7 feet tall or not. So my love to you all. Thank you so much.
Huge pleasure. Love to be back on. Also back on. He's got the wheels in the motion in the background for me. Poor bloke turns up. I'm giving him tasks in the background. It must be Miles. It's on the Spurs Kings. He's back on the show. Miles, lovely to have you here. Big week in store, right?
Good to be back. Yeah, good to be back. Good to be back. Look, Spurs never give me a dull moment. I said I was going to live off the cup victory, and I can't. So I'm here. Let's get choo-choo, as they say. Let's get back on this train.
Miles told me, Rick, I'm going on a break. Leave me alone. He had about 6 days but break. I went, Miles, you're back again. Poor bloke just should turn off the phone, really, shouldn't he? Should turn off the phone. Also back on the show. Did his best Rod Stewart impression the last time he was on. I want to say the voice is healed. Look, his face never really changes, does it? We've got the wonderful George Achillea back on Last Word on Spurs. Gee, lovely to have you. How are you?
I'm back. No, the voice is back. I'm feeling a lot better now. Last one was a struggle. But yeah, no, great to be back on with you guys. Like I was saying, I wanted to just enjoy this Europa League win and just soak all in, but it's impossible with Spurs because they throw every sort of curveball at you and every sort of news, and things change thick and fast. So I pretty much just spent my whole day researching Frank, seeing how it works for Spurs, and yeah, my head's spinning at the moment. So just happy to be on, and let's get into it.
G, we really, really appreciate it. Look, guys, for those out there, thank you so much for all your support. Look, of course, over the last week or so, but in general, like I say, at the moment, it's relentless. It is relentless. You'll be glad to know I am getting a little bit of a break in July. Don't be so excited. I can see some people smiling out there. Some people are delighted. You're getting me off your screens for a couple of weeks. Don't be worried. So, look, during that time, we've got to celebrate and get together. It's going to be Frank Fever and a lot of coverage to come over Thomas Frank and where we are. So, like I say, for those out there, we do implore you to keep liking, keep subscribing to the shows. We've got some wonderful content coming your way over this period where you're going to get to know Tottenham's new manager very, very fast. Let's give you the latest update on what we understand to be how far away Thomas Frank is from being appointed Tottenham Hotspur's new head coach. We understand as things are at the moment, Frank is set to join Tottenham in the coming days once the two clubs come to a final agreement over his move, as well as his coaching staff the 51-year-old will take with him across North London. There is a hopeful growing expectation that Frank could be confirmed as the new manager within the next 48 hours. Talks are, as I've discussed, ongoing, but they are progressing positively, and there is a will on both sides to get the deal done as quickly as possible. And we also understand at the moment Spurs are close to agreeing that compensation fee with Brentford for Thomas Frank. We also understand, which has been brought to us, that Vinay Venkatesham has been working away in the background for Tottenham in this last few weeks and has been involved very much in the process of getting a deal done for Thomas Frank, and that is along with Chairman Daniel Levy. What has also been brought to our attention is that non-executive director Peter Charrington, director of ENIC, joined the board a couple of months ago, and he is not believed to have got involved with football decisions at Tottenham as of yet, and that's according to friend of the show, Alistair Gold, who has also informed us that Spurs' coaching staff at the moment, the likes of Millie Jedinak, Sergio Raimondo and Nick Montgomery, are set to leave the club with Frank to be appointed as the manager. We know that as things stand at the moment, there's a lot of talk around who is going to come with him as part of that backroom staff. We're going to come on to that in a second. We also do need to let you know out there, for those that maybe missed it in terms of coming into this show, that Heung Min Son is closer than ever to leaving the football club. That's an exclusive being brought to us by, again, friend of the show, Alistair Gold. We'll be getting the guy's thoughts on that and more. And of course, the very, very latest in Tottenham's links to the likes of Bryan Mbuemo and of course, Antoine Semenyo, another name that Tottenham have got very much firmly on their radar. But before we get into all that and more, it's been a whirlwind week, right? I know for some of these guys, they've had to process Ange Postecoglou departing, a new man coming in. T, just open up with you. What have you made of the whirlwind that is Tottenham Hotspur? If you sit firmly back in your seat 1 week later, a lot has happened, right?
What can I make of all of it? My goodness, how long have we got? I think me, like every other Tottenham fan in the world, is experiencing a multitude of emotion all at the same time. And actually, that's quite an apt thing to open with, because lots of chatter on socials and on the pod. And for me, as you know, I'm a positive person, and I never like to engage with anyone in a negative manner. Really, my rule of life is that if I have an interaction with someone, whether it lasts for 2 seconds or 2 minutes or 2 hours or 2 years or whatever it may be, have it be a positive interaction. Have that person walk away feeling uplifted rather than even neutral or certainly negative. And so it's very important that we all understand that several things can be true at the same time. Number one, and human beings also have the capability and the right to feel different things at the same time. And also we have the rights to change our minds. So, of course, I personally feel really sad for Ange. I really do. I think he's a lovely man. Football aside, he's a lovely man, a family man, dedicated and committed and all the rest of it. And of course, provided us with so much pleasure and joy, unadulterated, pure joy, like an experience that you really can't experience, for my opinion, outside of sport. When I was in the Tottenham Stadium, I celebrated with all the thousands of people at that same time, knowing that there were millions around the world also having that experience. It's a very unique thing. And so to experience something quite so rare and quite so jubilant is a tremendous privilege. And I will always thank him for that. However, I'm also aware that this is a business, and in modern football, things have to move on. So I wish him all the very best, all the love in the world to him and his family. And of course, I'm fully going to get behind Mr. Thomas Frank. I think he's a very exciting proposition. Like I said, I've been listening to the shows and learning an awful lot from these esteemed panelists. George, almost professorial knowledge and stats and Excel sheets and things like that, which I've never seen an Excel sheet in my life. And I was trying to sort of read it, and it was really...
He's an actor, ladies and gentlemen. He's an actor. We love him for it.
I get handed a cup of coffee there, and say those things today, stand on that little cross on the ground. Yes, boss, and I get on with it. So I'm really excited and really delighted that I think we have another gentleman coming in to take care of us. And I've said before, that is important to me, that we have a gentleman at the helm who has a very clear vision. And so how am I feeling? A multitude of mixed emotions, like I said, but primarily optimistic, hopeful, and really excited that this wonderful gentleman is going to come into our club and steer us in a direction that I believe will be successful. Happy to be back, Rick. Thank you for having me.
Tej, thank you so much. I am going to bring Miles in. Miles is mentioning stuff for me in the background, but I'm going to pick it up, Miles. So we're just going to get your opinion on this very, very quickly. I say very quickly. Look, change of manager, change of goal. A lot has happened over the course of the last few weeks, we know. And I think, like I say it on this show, I think we've all been split as a family on Last Word on Spurs. I mean, there's been a lot of different conversations in regards to the WhatsApp groups as to whether the right decision has been made. I think when you, do take the emotion out of it and you do go and listen and watch and do your research on Thomas Frank and how this guy has, I think, been waiting for an opportunity of this nature. I honestly think we're getting someone that I think is ready for Tottenham Hotspur. And when you look at the way his career has panned out to date, there's been not only an upward trajectory in what he's done at Brentford and where he's taken the club, but also he's had to fight his way through certain obstacles there when it comes to the financial remit, which I'm sure, Miles, is another key reason why Enoch, Daniel Levy in particular, maybe feel he is the right man for the job as of right now. Do you agree on that point, and your thoughts on the overall appointment?
No, I couldn't agree more. What I've noticed over the last week or so, I know a lot of people are saying they're a bit underwhelmed with the appointment, but however, this is the first time that an appointment after a sacking of a manager makes sense. And what I mean by that is actually, if you go look at the style of play that Frank plays at Brentford, there's quite similar to what Ange wanted to do with Spurs, but there's more. And that's the bit that people will get used to when they start looking at it. Once people start doing their research about Spurs, if you go and look at the attacking play that Brentford wanted to play, you can exactly see why Brennan Johnson and Archie Gray and certain players were linked with Brentford before they came to Spurs. And the reason why I say that is because obviously over the last week or so, since this Frank news has dropped, I've been watching a lot, been seeing a lot, and been trying to watch completely what Brentford have been doing. Not to say I wasn't watching Brentford before, because I used to like the way they played football and whatnot, and I did like Thomas Frank. Whether I thought at the time, look, I've just come off the Europa League win, and I was like, hold on. But when he was being rumoured, and I was like, the elite managers have come to this club and not worked out. As they say, the elite managers. Thomas Frank at the moment, where he is in his journey and where Spurs are in their journey, it's all aligned and starting to make sense to me. And I'm just looking at it going, actually, I'm quite happy with this appointment. I think I said it on the last show. I was the only one who said I don't mind if Thomas Frank comes in, because I can see where Tottenham are going and I can see a plan. That's the difference now. I can actually see a plan. And that's why at this present moment, I am looking forward to this appointment. And this is going to sound really weird. I really hope that he doesn't hit the ground running. I hope it starts with a bit of it starts with a few bumps, and then we can start getting... I don't want it to start like he did with Ange, because people will give up too easily. I think let's give it 10 games in, see where he's at, and then start seeing where he's trying to get to with this squad. And especially that a lot of these players are going to need upgrading for the Champions League campaign as well. And that's the bit we need to remember. And I'm not worried about he hasn't got no, when I say European experience, I know it's in he's in the qualifiers, but he's never got to. But he's never got to. I'm not worried about that, because you don't need that, because he's a manager. But what I have seen so far, and this is, I think, where everybody's happy, where they wasn't happy with Ange, tactically, he has got it. he knows to adjust, he knows how to amend, and he knows how to play his football as well on top.
Yep.
This could be an interesting time for Tottenham Hotspur and an interesting time for everybody involved, us fans, us content creators, the media. It's going to be one hell of a ride. And I don't think, I'm going to say this now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, this is not going to be an 18th to 2-year project. I've got a feeling this could be, you're going into 3-4 years.
Wow.
And this is where I'm looking at it going. Yeah.
It's a brave man that says that, given our
and I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to, in 2 years' time, you come back and whatnot. But what I've seen so far, this is a perfect match for what's going to happen over the next few years. And I think everyone will get behind it, even the guys that are still wheeling about Ange a little bit. I think what's going to happen is everyone's going to get on the train, and we're all going to go there together. And I think we're going to have a good 3-4 years with this guy. This is how I feel. And just seeing what he's done at Brentford, and I know I've had a few tweets with my job at the moment and I get to know a bit about Brentford and spoken to Brentford fans. He is the real deal.
They're devastated. I mean, again, if you listen, I would also go and implore you, if you haven't already, if you go and listen to a lot of the Brentford podcasts out there, a fan that we actually interact with, they're called Billy the Bee on Besotted, who's again Besotted Brentford fan. He is besotted on Frank, and he's absolutely devastated to be losing him. And for them, whilst I think you've seen similar to Brighton, they will have their own succession model. I think Kieran McKenna's high up on their list. They are devastated to be losing Thomas Frank, because he has built what that club has become as an established Premier League side. And I think that is what's so fascinating coming over to you, G, because I do feel in the last 24, 48 hours, I feel there's been a little bit of a shift amongst the Spurs community where I know some like you were, I don't want to say mourning the loss of Ange, but you were rightly enjoying the Europa League win, the parade and what came with that. I know many weren't ready yet to face having a new manager. Some were, some weren't. I do feel over this last, like I said, couple of days, people have gone away, they've done their digging, done their research, watched a lot of the podcasts that Frank has been on, seen a lot of the interviews. And I think what comes across is just how much he's a thoroughly decent human being. And I think the one line that I know many will agree to in life is that kind of no dickhead policy, which he refers to, because that I think is a key fundamental to have any form of success in any kind of workplace. You need to be working with good people around you that want to go into work every day with the right mindset, the right application. And I think that alone should give confidence about the kind of person we're getting as a character. And that's before you tap into what the ability has got as a coach. What did you make for you, G, of the overall appointment?
Yeah, 100% agree with pretty much everything you said there. I think for me, it was a weird set of emotions, like TJ was saying earlier, because it just felt wrong in a world where we had just won the Europa League trophy that our manager goes 2 weeks later. It feels like that shouldn't even be a scenario, but nonetheless, Spurs are Spurs, and we don't make things easy ever. So I think for me, it was just that crazy mix of emotions that was strange, because you got this massive high of winning a Europa League, and the first manager to do it in 41 years, to then say goodbye to him because of other factors, but then have him replaced by a manager that I also really like, when I really wanted to secretly hate him because I was like, oh, why is Ange not still here? It's a strange one, but yeah, I really like Frank a lot. His like you say, his adaptability, and not even just that, his actual tactics are very good as well. I think the problem I have is more, I don't want it to just be a safe option, in the sense of I don't want us to now just settle for a better league position. That can't be it. We still need to go with the aim of trying to win like domestic trophies, because as well as that, when you think of how Brentford perform in a lot of domestic trophies, especially last season, it's very poor. They got knocked out by Plymouth Argyle, which I know we're saying how he has to deal with working with players on a smaller budget compared to other Premier League teams. But when you're getting knocked out by a relegated Championship side, it's a little bit concerning. But those are just sort of situations where we have to just assess once he's at Spurs. I think the fact that he is able to adapt, the fact he's used a dominant side in Brentford in the Championship, swapped to a 3 at the back, gone a lot more defensive when he first came in, just to create a more stable position to keep them in the Prem, and has now over the last year changed it again to a back 4, and gone a little bit more offensive, and definitely pressing really high up on the pitch. Just really goes to show that he's a very clever man. And like you say, when it comes to his personality, I think he's very similar to Ange in that sense of he's a guy that you will get behind. And I think the players will get behind, even though they seem to be mourning Ange as well. So yeah, I think it's a great appointment, great guy, great tactics. It's just hopefully the board and the club can now give him that sort of next level, more experienced players to be able to perform well in the Champions League, domestic cups, league. And obviously, I'm not expecting. I'm not stupid. We're not expected to win all four and compete really high on all four. It's just you don't want.
They did tell us, G, that
they did
say that we should be competing on all four fronts. That's what they said in that statement.
Well, the track record is that that's not going to happen. But from my opinion, I'd like us to be able to really tackle the Premier League and have a very, very, very good go. At one or two of those trophies.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Let's just, on that point you've said there, G, bring people up to date with what we understand to be at the moment. Wouldn't say a stumbling block, but one of the key fundamentals at the moment that is really important to Thomas Frank, and that's the fact that we understand that he really does want a number of the existing coach backroom staff at Brentford to follow him to Tottenham. They are going to potentially include Justin Cochrane, who was with Tottenham previously, obviously served a lot through our youth period. John Really White Rose knows him very, very well, of course. He's also part of England's coaching staff under Thomas Tuchel, where he's actually doing a dual role at the moment. He's doing the role for England as well as Brentford. So you just wonder, how would that situation work? And next, what I'm going to say is quite an interesting situation, because when I think back to the last 18 months of this show, around the fact of set pieces, and I remember saying to Tej and Marlon, even G, I was thinking, why are we not getting a set piece coach? Like, why are we not going out there to get a set piece coach? We understand that another staff member that could join Thomas Frank at Tottenham is set piece coach Andreas Juulsen, who I understand, and lads, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, I think this guy has had experience, I believe, obviously with Brentford, but I think has probably also been with Arsenal, I think, for a period. And I believe there's been obviously one other Premier League club in there as well. So
Man United.
Thanks to you on that. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of key fundamentals that will go into that coaching staff. And what we understand from, again, friend of the show, Alistair Gold, is that there is the potential that either or both Matt Wells and Rob Birch could remain at the club if the new head coach, expected to be Frank, wants to keep them involved in his staff. So I think those are the kind of ongoing variables at the moment with regards to maybe this little bit of a hold up in regards to the announcement itself. I mean, teach us on that point, how important is the fact around the coaching staff? Because I remember, cast our mind back, Nuno, bless him, I think he could only bring 2 coaches with him. I think Conte wanted to bring 12 with him. He only got 6 in the end. So we had to compromise. I mean,
3 of them were hairdressers. So, that's understandable.
Would surprise me. How important is that, though, Tej, in all seriousness, that this man gets the people that he's been working with? Because these are fundamental to how he operates, right?
Well, I think especially with somebody who has managed to not, set the league alight, but has managed to create stability and create, in his own words, a culture. And culture trumps everything. And culture, as we know, when you go out with your friends or you're at a public kind of environment, this kind of atmosphere that can be created is enormously infectious. And I think something that I speak about a lot on this show, and I post about it on social media all the time, is for us to remind ourselves that our squad, the players, they're all young men. Even the seniors, they're still young men. And so those young men are enormously, enormously malleable. And how we treat them, how we speak to them, an arm around the shoulder, or, how much stick, how much carrot is absolutely fundamental in finding that 1%, 2%, 3% that is the difference between a good player, a very good player, and an elite player. And so what I'm really fascinated to see, and to George's point, and of course he's right, as he always is, George, I've been watching a lot of your stuff. in awe.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm definitely not wishing.
Well, I am, because, listen, I consumed a lot of it at once. So, perhaps my perspective was clouded. But right now, mate, I'm on that.
You didn't go all the way back watching him in the Champions League final, did you, T? You go all that way back? Come forward. Then you are pretty consumed.
But, weekend viewing. But so one of the things that I'm really interested in, and again, I've spoken about this on the show before, but not for a while, is that where is the responsibility for a coach and his staff to improve players? I think that was one of the criticisms of Ange, which I could kind of go along with almost entirely, is that who have you really improved at the club? And so for me, I'm really excited to see, what do you go and do with Archie Gray? What do you go and do with Bergvall? What do you do with Decky? What do you do with Solanke? I mean, listen, man, what do you do with all of them? They're all young men. And so that, for me, is perhaps one of the things that I am the most excited about. Of course, I want the boards and the chairman and those, with access to the checkbook to give him specifics that he's requiring. But I must admit that I'm more excited about the prospect of a manager coming in and going, I've never had a squad with this amount of talent in it, never. And so watch me take you from a 7 to an 8 or a 9, potentially even a 10. That's what I'm really excited about. And so I think that is something that we, the club, the fans, can kind of get behind this man and give him the impetus and the positivity and support him to say, we are so happy to have you here, mate. And of course, we hope you bring in Mbuemo and maybe Eze and all these exciting things. Brilliant. But turn our current crop of players into top Premier League players, and that will give us a chance to perform in all 4 tournaments. That's what I'm excited to see.
Tish, thank you so much for that point. I think, again, we mention this all the time, Miles. I come over to you and I've got your message in the background, Miles. I've got it. How important is that for you, the fact of the matter around that coaching staff element piece? Because I think the reality is that for many out there, we've seen it. You want to go all the way back to Fergie even. Fergie and his coaching staff. Mourinho's had his own coaching staff. Although they adopted and changed it at Tottenham, of course he had to change it at Tottenham. He weren't going to bring the people that he probably wanted to bring here. I think this has been, I wouldn't say a sticking point with regards to Tottenham in general, but we've had this situation in the past, haven't we, regards to when people have come to the football club, they've not necessarily got the components they've wanted to bring through the door. That feels almost like it's their left and right arm when it comes to their way of managing, because we've seen already, and we'll share it in the show, that Frank is a hands-on type coach, but he relies a lot on the actual staff around him who embed that philosophy, who embed those principles, and really knuckle down and really drill that into the players. And thank you for saying that. I think Rich dropped me a message here. Keith Andrews is the set-piece coach, which I'm led to believe he would also be keen on bringing to the club. So how important do you feel for you, Miles, is that thing around the set, well, not only the set-piece coach element, but bringing in that coaching staff to the football club?
Well, it's like in any situation, if you're bringing in such a high-profile person into the club to change your fortunes, you bring in his family that know him well. And I always said this was my biggest issue with Ange, is that he never brought his coaching staff with him, and you could tell from Ange's first season, they're all getting to know each other. There's that element of not being able to, they're learning his style and vice versa. We got away with it in the first year, finished 5th, but as everyone saw, we started going in a downward trend. He then lost the guy to Birmingham last year.
Chris, yeah. I'm trying
to see lost now. Chris, and then we had to bring in, is it Montgomery the year?
Montgomery and Raimondo. It feels like a double act, doesn't it? It feels like a magician act, but yeah. Montgomery and Raimondo.
So you've got 2 more people now. Raimondo. Yeah, that are now learning on the job. We've also got the Spurs coaching staff that were there from before, and it's just kind of, you suddenly saw that there was friction between it all. Whereas when Pochettino was allowed to bring his staff in, they knew his work. They knew what he'd been doing at Espanyol. They knew what he'd been doing at Southampton. So you have that continuity going forward. And this is why a lot of clubs allow the coaching staff to come with them, unfortunately. I know Spurs are trying to do it in a way where we're trying to get Ledley badges. We're trying to get Ryan Mason badges. So we try and have that element of Spurs. But sometimes we need to take that element of Spurs away from it to create a winning culture. And yes, Ange has now created that because we've got that trophy, but it's sacrificed somewhere else. And what's happening now is, as George said earlier, They want to create a culture where we're fighting on all fronts. But Ange will need all these analysts. And do you know what? If anyone could go watch a day in the life of Frank, it's worth the watch to see what the coaching staff and all they talk about. That's how you know they've known each other not a long time, but they've worked with each other for so long, which then feeds onto the players, which then means when they lose someone like Ivan Toney, they've got the backups there already in place. They've got Visa, they've got Mbuemo to come in. They've got players that already know the system because the coaching staff know it. And it's so important. And this is why, especially when you see managers moving around, they tend to want to take their coaching staff with them. And I think this is going forward. A lot of clubs are looking at this, and Spurs have always kind of been a stopgap for everybody where they've kind of gone, no, you need to take this person, you need to take this person. That's, for me, that's the board not understanding football and the way that element works. And getting that trust behind the scenes. Like for you, Ricky, you've got your main four, and when you bring anyone else in, you feed us into it. It works. It works in any situation, and that's how the podcast can work. So exactly, Spurs should be doing.
Can I be honest with you, Miles? I think over the last 18 months.
Apart from Jason.
Oh, listen. I think can I say over the last 18 months they've killed off so many of the cast. I think there is a main four now. It's just the main 30 of us that just try it if we can. But it's got to that point really. It's whoever just picks up the phone nowadays because of what he's done to them.
But in all seriousness, but that's how it works, and that's how you create the continuity, and that's how you are able to create the show, and vice versa. It works exactly the same in football. So I'm so glad that they've, if they're going to do it, they are going to get Frank's backroom staff, because that's who he needs, because the players will be all new to it. But if the coaching staff are not, they'll be like, no, this is the way he likes to do stuff. This is the way we like to do stuff. Let's do it this way. And it's the message is then drilled into the players a lot more quickly, and they'll buy into it a lot more.
I have to agree on that. I mean, Jules, do you agree with what Tej and Miles have said there in relation to how imperative and important it is that this man, in terms of Thomas Frank, does get the people in that he's been working around for the last, again, 5, 6, 7, 8 years that have, let's all be honest, with due respect, helped him most certainly along the way to becoming the coach he is? Because I'm sure he would agree he wouldn't be anywhere, I wouldn't say nowhere near the coaches, but he would nowhere be maybe in terms of what he's done at Brentford without having those people around him that have been able to instill those messages day in, day out to those players. And I think you did say it on there, Miles, with that documentary, that one they did on Sky, A Day with Frank. When you actually watch it, you see Frank's actually taking a step back from the training. He's actually looking on to seeing what the coaching staff around him are doing, because he trusts those people. And it goes back to the element of trust, George, that you need to know who you're working with, because these are the people that are instilling that message to those group of players.
Definitely. And I think, and I'm not sure what his name was. I think he was a younger coach when they were doing that sort of briefing room in that video when going through the previous match. It was like he allowed them to present the ideas and then was asking them questions about what they think the next move was, which is what I really liked as well. It wasn't just him necessarily being a dictator and dictating everything. He like Miles was saying, that he puts a lot of trust in these people. And I think, as much as obviously a manager is supposed to manage everyone, he can't physically do every single part of training and cover everything to do with football. So the fact that he has his men that I guess he trusts and delegates with on a regular, and has done over the last however many years, I think it definitely is important they need to bring him along, because at the end of the day, you will have a situation which happened with Ange as well, where, look, I'm sure Ange does a similar thing where he won't necessarily take the actual physical training. He let his coaches do it, but he has to then spend that time with new coaches at every job to teach them how he wants things done before they can then relay that onto the players. And it can take a while to get things moving. Whereas you'd like to think if Frank can bring his men in with him to Spurs, that's one bit already ticked off. And as Miles was saying there, they can just get straight into teaching these players their principles and their ideas and kind of going from there. So yeah, I think it's really important, in my opinion, for him to be able to bring at least most of them along.
Yeah, 100%. Look, we'll see how that does pan out. And again, we'll update you if there's any change with regards to that news. We are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We're going to turn our attention next to maybe some of the obstacles Frank is going to face at Tottenham, where we've heard that news in this last 24 hours. As mentioned to you at the very, very top of the show, that Heung Min Son is understood to be more open than ever to leaving Tottenham. So we're going to see how that does pan out. We're going to go for our first break of the show. Let's hear from Thomas Frank in this break, who does speak a little bit about some of the players he may be looking forward to working with when he was asked about this during his time at Brentford.
I think that's a big expectation. I know they haven't had the best season, but if you look at their lineup, just take their front three, I think a lot of clubs would have taken them any day. I know more players there could be Kulusevski, but let's say their midfield, Kulusevski, Bentancur, Bissouma. That's a very, 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 very good Premier League midfield. And then I know they haven't had a centre-back, but maybe Gray and Bennett and Davis played the best defensive game of the season. So Porro is fantastic as right-back. He's got Trent-ish offensive qualities, and Spence have done very well, Kingsley. So we can't expect... If we expect that, then there's something wrong with our fans. Or something wrong with... In the Premier League, it's difficult every game.
So... that news we brought to you, Heung Min Son understood to be more open than ever to leaving Tottenham this summer. Before we get into that, I just want to say a massive thank you again for those that are watching the show live. We've got over 7,000 of you that are hearing our dulcet tones as we enter the very, very late hours of the UK. And in TJ's world, they're only just getting going. It's a lovely afternoon and you can see that sunlight beaming through onto TJ, who settled back in, frankly speaking, happy and homely back for him. Listen, if you are again with us for the first time, thank you so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. I have to say, we've already seen a bit of an upward trend in the data. You know, a bit of data for you. We've seen a lot of Danish contingent already coming over here to Last Word on Spurs. So Thomas Frank does have a fan group. So we're working on bringing the Danes over. We might have lost some of the Aussies. If you want to stick around with those wonderful Aussies out there, feel free to do so. But we are bringing over some of those wonderful Danish people. If you are with us for the first time, thank you so much. If you can keep liking, keep subscribing to the show, we really, really do appreciate it. Let's bring on that news of Heung Min Son and that exclusive, that Alistair goal brought to us in these last few hours, where he's understood to be more than open than ever to departing the football club. Now, Sonny was quizzed on his future, where he said, I still have one more year left on the contract. Rather than saying anything at the moment, I think we should all wait to see what happens. But no matter where I end up, I will always do the best I can. It will never change. Many fans and media are curious, and I'm curious too about what will happen. We need to see what unfolds. Wherever I am, as always, I'll give my all, and I'll be a player who always works hard. Let's come first to you on that, Tej. What do you make of, maybe you would say, a cryptic message from Sonny? It's not really confirming his stand, it's not really confirming he's leaving, but again, with what we've been told from Ali, obviously very reliable journalist in the Spurs world, the fact that the club maybe, or the player himself is open to a move this summer, can't be, obviously, no smoke about fire, right?
Certainly not. And not if it's coming from Ali. You know, there's also, you know, there's conjecture all over the place, but, you know, some sources are more reliable than others. I've spoken countless times of my deep admiration and affection for Sonny, my favourite Tottenham player pretty much since he first arrived. And when, you know, to the final, I knew I was going to wear the green shirt. And I said to you boys, I've had my green Tottenham shirt with Son on the back in the plastic, waiting for us to reach the final. And I wore it with great joy and great pride. I love the guy. Me personally, I do still think he has what it takes to play at the highest level. I do think that. I said many times, the system that Ange employed with our fullbacks being quite so high up the pitch and often actually overtaking whoever's playing left back or right back, it just didn't suit Sonny. When he receives the ball with an opportunity to run, I still think he has what it takes. I really do. And also, I'm a great fan in listening to what professional footballers say about other professional footballers. I can't remember who sent it to me. I think it was Brother Patrick, because he knows I'm an enormous Moussa Dembele fan, sent me an interview with two chaps. I don't know who they are. They're probably enormously famous. My apologies to them both. Speaking to another player, I think it was Iwobi, about who's the best player he ever played against. And he said, bro, I didn't want to say it because I'm Arsenal and he's Tottenham, but Moussa Dembele is the best player. De Bruyne said it, like everyone says it. And like, I love hearing that because I love Moussa. So when you hear other players talk about Heung Min Son, hear goalkeepers talk about this guy, hear defenders talk about this guy, I still think he has it. And also, so much of getting older as an athlete comes down to personal discipline, diet, regime, sleep, alcohol, personal relationships, etc., etc. I don't think there's a person on the planet who would doubt Heung Min Son's personal discipline and how he applies himself as a man and a gentleman to everything that he does. So I think he could still offer at the very highest level, I think, for more than a season under the right system. However, if he chooses to go somewhere else and it works for him and for his family, and of course for us, if we benefit, then he goes with all the love in the world. Me personally, I hope he stays.
It's interesting because I think this does appear to be, Miles, my comment, it might be quite controversial, but I think obviously that I think the best days of Sonny are behind him. And I think if he does remain at Tottenham, I think it would be more now in terms of a squad player, an impact sub. I mean, that's on the basis, I'll just say that we are going to hopefully upgrade. I'm sure you will come on to this a bit later in the show, the wingers. I think that's a key area for Tottenham that they are going to need to upgrade. We know they've been looking at Semenyo as being one of those options. There's talk they're going to keep Tell, which again I know is some like that, some don't like that news. I mean, just on the basis, Miles, with regards to Sonny, the fact that he turns 33 next month, and as Ali reported, he's faced this frustrating season with a foot injury, really struggled to replicate his best form in a Spurs shirt. Just the 7 goals in the Premier League, but he, just to say for balance of that, did manage to record 23 goal involvements in the 46 matches across all comps. How big is that a dilemma for Frank and for Sonny over the course of the summer to work out?
It depends really, because everyone used to use a comparison that Sonny and Salah are around the same age. So it's all dependent on how Frank wants to use him, because in the Ange system, he was expected to do a lot of running. His age is eventually going to catch up to him. If you'd ask Salah to play for Ange Postecoglou, I'm going to sit here and tell you Salah's not going to score as many because he's expected to do much more in the role that he was. However, if for me personally, I would let this, now that Son's won his trophy, I would personally let him go. However, we're not going to let him go until after we've been to Korea in the friendly in the summer. We've got to remember that. There's no way that we're going to go there without a Sonny. So it's going to wait till after that. But knowing Spurs, they'll wait till after the Super Cup to let him go. That's what I think will be kind of the icing on the cake. Let him play that and then release him to where he needs to go to in the summer when that bid comes in. Because in my mind, I think if Sonny's talking like that, everything's been done. It's just probably because they're waiting for the career trip, and then possibly, that's just me now speaking hypothetically, that they probably might wait until after the Super Cup to let him go out on the high to say that he played both. He played, he was captain of the Europa League winners, and then he's got the runners-up in the Super Cup. And then, because it's still in August, so we've still got time to sell him then. I wouldn't be surprised that's what's going to happen. And what we've also got to look at in all of this and the bigger picture is our squad is at its maximum. And I think that's the bit that we, as Spurs fans at the moment, we've really got to play it. We need to let some go. And unfortunately, if Sonny's going to give us a price, then he may be the one that we have to go and say, actually, he's an asset that we can get good money for and that we can reinvest in the squad and go and hopefully get better or, do something. But, look, I love Sonny as well. He's been a great servant to this club. And if Spurs ever did statues, he'd be one that I'd all be going to say he needs to be out there because he's done so much for this club. And he won a trophy. He actually won a trophy. So, I would say this news will ramp up after they've been to South Korea in the preseason friendly.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that point up, Miles. I mean, as far as we understand, there's been a lot of teams in the Saudi Pro League that have been tipped to launch that big move for Sonny across the summer. I mean, I think as Marlon said there, we kind of know the exposure that the Asian market will create for Spurs, and in general, being out, of course, there for pre-season. I agree with Marlon. I don't see a world in which Sonny does go before the Super Cup final. I think what you've got to bear in mind is that transfer window does not shut until the 1st of September. And I think the longer that transfer window is open, there's a greater chance, obviously, of Sonny leaving the football club. So I just wonder how you do see that situation working out, whether you do see that being a conversation that Frank will have with Sonny from day one, because as we know, Guy has produced big numbers for the football club. You look at his career, 173 goals, 101 assists in 454 games. We're talking about someone, as we've said, is a legend of the club, ended that 17-year trophy drought for the club as well. Captain, is it important this is managed correctly, George, so everyone feels this has been done in the right way?
I think so. And I think, this guy still delivers, to be honest with you. He's put up the same goals and assists that he did in Conte's last season a couple of years ago. And then he bounced back with 17 goals and 10 assists last year. So Sonny kind of does go in patches here and there. And I do think the quality is still there with him. And if I'm being honest with you, I think he will sort of suit this Ange system that we've seen. Ange system, the Frank system that we've seen for Brentford over the last year.
Take some time, Gene.
Sorry, I'm still there.
We'll get you there. We just won't put you near Jason too much.
That's right. Yeah, it's fine. It's cool. I just need a moment to collect myself. I think Sonny is brilliant at the sort of starting out wide, cutting in, driving towards the edge of the area. And we that's that vintage, that classic Sonny goal of sort of driving in to the middle, curling shot on the inside. Like, that's the sort of exact area that a lot of Frank's forwards go to. They all run centrally. They're not the type that will constantly push out wide and go around the outside. Obviously, they do chop and change here and there, but the main ethos of their football is the front three all collectively drive forwards towards the box. And I think that's where Sonny's at his best. So I think his style of play fits Frank. The problem is, as we said before, the legs are going, especially when he's so reliant on his speed, and the older he gets, it does become a little bit more of a problem. And two, when we talk about like the emotions of football, like you said there, lifting up the trophy finally after 10 years or however long it's been as the captain of Spurs, you kind of don't want Son to then just teeter out of Tottenham in a way similar to what Ange is going to be remembered for. He's going to be remembered as the captain that lifted the trophy and will go out on such a high. And I think there's a lot of reports earlier about as well that he would have to get reduced minutes next year to sort of manage his workload, manage his injuries, which he got a lot more of this season. And if he's our club captain and he's constantly being rotated, that is a very difficult scenario to sort of work around, where your main club captain isn't even starting most games. So it might be best for him.
Sorry to interrupt you, brother, but I was going to ask you, do you think under Thomas Frank, if he stays, does he retain the armband?
I think so, mainly because it's such a hard. When your player's there and he is the legend that he is and the captain that lifted the trophy, it's so hard to then rip that away from him when you're gonna then play him next year at some point.
Yeah.
So I do think he would still stay on as club captain. I think there's a few teams that have done that before. A lot of centre backs are club captains, but then the older they get, they don't play as much.
Yeah.
So
regarding his pace, and obviously, when you're talking about that classic goal, we're all talking about, the Puskas against Burnley, right? And again, on another, on one of your podcasts, I was watching you speaking about how Brentford had the highest shot to goal ratio, right? They don't shoot as much as anyone else, but they score more goals than anyone else. I guess that's to do with as well being central, right? It's much easier to score from the center of the box than it is from the peripheries of the box, the outer edges. With his pace, and lots of people saying, yes, we love him. No, he should go. He was terrible last season. He still hasn't. Again,
it's a split.
What I first said, we're all entitled to opinions, gang, and we can believe that certain things can be true at the same time. I think it was the Villa game where he came on and just went and roasted people. So I think he, along with several other players at the club, were massively hampered, not just by injury. The medical staff, I don't know what was happening last season, but something, someone, it was almost like Lasagna Gate again, like something.
But on a weekly basis. Brother,
I don't think Sonny was 100% fit once last season. So again, yes, my heart is with him and always will be, but I promise you I'm parking that. Promise you. To Marlon's point, love Marlon to pieces, right? Again, an absolute gent, a dear friend and a wise sage, and really does his research. Bro, if we get 100 million for him or whatever, off you go, Sonny. Thank you so much. We'll always remember you with the cup and with your sunglasses on, looking like a G.
I think the only 100 million you'll get will be Monopoly money, G.
You look like a G.
With 1 year left.
However, if you bring money to the club and we can buy other people, then great. That's your last act of service to the club. However, I think, just me personally, I don't think he has lost that pace. I think it's still there. And I think he can lose 1 or 2% and still be one of the quickest players in the league. That's what I think. If he's fully fit, I still think he's really dangerous. Just my opinion.
I think it'd be fascinating to see how this does work out. And it kind of comes on to the point, really, that Frank has got a lot of decisions to make, hasn't he? When we talk about, what is coming up for him and what comes next, he's got this Romero situation, which at this time of recording, we've not even seen We've not seen a Romero post to say goodbye to Ange.
He must be hurting if he has not said anything.
Either he's hurting or he just doesn't want to post. The thing I find fascinating about Romero is that whenever he does post or say anything, it's normally quite an explosive message that does carry a lot of weight. So that's why I think we've been saying, well, come on. When
his most recent one about saying that we have to stick together was quite telling of that, and that was quite a while after everyone else as well.
Yes, I mean, are you surprised, G, that we've had radio silence from Romero to date?
I don't know about necessarily surprised. This is also the guy that didn't turn up to the last game when apparently the club were expecting him to be at the Spurs stadium. So I don't really know what's going on with him, to be honest with you. I think for me, he definitely must be hurt to some degree because the messages that Basuma shared were quite telling, and he wasn't the only one saying about how there's a lot to be said, but won't get into that. So it's a little audience that said anything, but it's probably just Romero being Romero, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think just on that point, Miles, does it kind of represent again I wouldn't say difficulty that Frank's going to face when he comes in, but the obstacles that are there for him from day one that he's going to need to address? I mean, look, as far as we're aware, because the window is shutting in at the time of this show, we're 40 minutes away from the first window shutting. Tottenham, as of yet, haven't done any transfer business, but I know there's a lot of people out there, Miles, that have been having that feeling that clubs around us are doing business. They are getting things done, or certainly have got things in the pipeline, and we are already a couple of weeks behind on that. And from what we heard again from the previous episode of the show that we released is that there's been a total agreement with Frank with regards to the salary, the contract, and those players to target. Is it really important that on this basis that when we do get Frank through the door, we're ready to go on these targets and try and address some of these issues that we have to deal with in the squad, the likes of Sonny, the likes of Romero, so we aren't playing catch-up mode here, Miles?
Yeah, no, of course. And the window, as I said earlier, is going to be so important because we have got Champions League and the quality needs to be upgraded. Otherwise, that whole statement of we need Tottenham to compete on all three fronts was just, Tottenham being Tottenham and just putting words out there. So it's going to be so important. Look, the next
I love the way, Miles, you've reduced it to 3 fronts, not 4 fronts. Even you don't believe it.
Well, Champions League is, look, at the end of the day, Champions League is unrealistic, and so is the league. I'm not going to sit there and say we're going to win it within our first season. We're not there yet. However, there are 2 other cup competitions that we possibly could do something in. But no, in all seriousness, the transfer window is so important. We need to make sure we highlight the players now. However, let's remember that this window wasn't for us. It was for Manchester City and Chelsea. That's why they've had to go and get the business done. Arsenal haven't done anything. Liverpool have just acted on because they remember Liverpool didn't sign no one last year apart from Chiesa. So they're trying to get their signings through the door before the big clubs do kind of start searching around. And not many teams have done it. I know there's not been a lot of rumours with us, but that's because we've been going through a managerial change. That was always going to be the first problem that was going to be highlighted, because as soon as Frank's now being kind of confirmed, and I know Mbuemo ain't coming, but he's been linked. Nathan Collins has been linked. There are players that are going to be linked with the club. And the big thing that I think I heard the other day, I can't remember if it was Paul O'Keefe or something, that they were looking for a number 6.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they are doing stuff. It's just that all our focus, as it would be, will be on the manager. But actually, the transfer business will now line up in the next part, and especially with the window being closed and reopens on. Well, someone's just put in the chat on the 16th. Thank you, Terry. But as soon as the window opens, we'll be acting on it. And you got to remember, again, our squad is the biggest issue. We have players. We need players to go out before they can come in. Because of how big the squad is at the moment. I think we're at the max of 17, and we've still got other players to put in that we need to sell on, like Solomon, We've still got, players. So there are players around. I know Højbjerg's gone, officially gone. So that's 70 million that's come in. But we just need to not panic. Not panic. It will come. You'll see over the next week. As soon as Frank's announced this week, we hope. It'll be every single player under the sun that we'll get linked with. And just by the way, I'm just going to throw this into something that George and Nat were saying earlier about the tactics. Pedro Porro is going to be so important to Frank. It's unbelievable.
So excited to see Porro under him.
Porro
I'm so excited.
I'm excited to see Doggy under him. The whole listen, the back four, whatever the back four is going to be. I think you see the way Frank drills him, but Porro, you do feel be a very key player under him in the way he's going to be
very, very because he's already said, and out of Frank's mouth himself, he basically said he's just like Trent, but he's got a bit about him, and there's something more. So and that was before he was a Spurs, before the Brentford manager. I believe that Porro is going to be the one that he's going to be. He's going to. I think Ange tried it, but because of the way he played and inverting and stuff like that, just didn't work out for Porro as much. But I'm looking forward to seeing Pedro Porro under Frank.
I think the downside on Ange's version seems to be that because one, we didn't really have a really properly established number 6 to cover him, but also Ange's sort of build up was 2 centre backs at the back and then both fullbacks kind of inverting and attacking, whereas Frank seems to be slightly different. He'll have one really attacking. So this last season that's just gone, he had Lewis Potter, who is actually a left winger playing left back because Rico Henry was out all season. So he basically had Lewis Potter effectively playing left wing a lot of the times, and Janelt covered in at the back, which meant that he could be ultra attacking all the time. Like I saw clips of Lewis Potter at the back post with Mbuemo and Wissa and everyone, or whoever it may have been. So I can kind of envision Porro being that guy that is going to be committed forward. And if we do sign a 6, or maybe it's Archie Gray or whatever, we'll cover him at the back and sort of form his back three. It won't be but if you wanted him at Brentford last time, he could be the rotation option in that position.
Yeah, and Johnson as well. I think that's the thing, Miles. I think what we are going to see is those players that maybe allegedly have been played out of position and not really been played in the position they should be. The likes of Gray, and I think again with Brennan, what you can't argue is his goals and stats have been there for themselves. I think that goal for Wales meant 20 goal contributions apiece in terms of what he's done over the course of the season. It might be more. I think you've got to take confidence from that. And I think what I wanted to ask you, Teachers, before we do go for the next break, is that, he's got a trend, hasn't he, for improving players. You look at what he's had under his watch, Frank, when you look at his overall, again, time at Brentford and the players he's managed there, Watkins, Benrahma, Eriksson, Tony, Raya, all those players were such huge losses, but he adapted without them and improved Brentford as a team. I mean, we're talking about a team here in Brentford that, with all due respect, they weren't a fully established Premier League side, despite losing what for that team has been key players along the way, along the journey. They have still managed to not only overcome the loss of a key player, but improve at the same time. It's a remarkable skill set to have done that as a coach and got results in the toughest league in the world.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And again, I know I said this a matter of minutes ago, but improving players, surely that's, if it's not number one on your list of requirements as a football coach, it's certainly going to be in the top 3. And I just think, especially in the Premier League, there's so much money, right? There's so much money and these ludicrous amounts of money that are constantly being bandied around. And so I think a lot of us, myself included, we forget, well, how about actually coaching players and making them better? Marlon made the point, we've got such an inflated squad already. Somebody posted, I think it was King Hoddle, how many wingers we already have. We've got so many. And so, again, I would like the focus of our new manager and his coaching staff to be improving what we already have, making hard and fast decisions about players who don't have a future at the club, getting rid of those, and then really kind of knuckling down and saying to all of these young gentlemen, boys, we are competing in 4 massive competitions this year. And for also our manager to put his hand on his heart and say, I've never done that, because he hasn't. And so it's part of galvanizing a group of men to really go to war and to really believe in you. I love Bissouma, right? I've always had a lot of affection for him, and he frustrated me an enormous amount when he wasn't.
Frustrated us all.
Right. And the fact that we spoke, Rick, we spoke on the show and we spoke in person, and then we spoke, on our WhatsApp conversations to each other about how we finally have Brighton Bissouma at Tottenham. And that was 100% Ange who did that. And he came out publicly and said, that conversation that you had with me, mate, that was the secret sauce. And so I want our new manager and his coaching staff to come in, look at the squad that we have and go, I am going to turn you into world beaters, and you will play your part and turn me into a world beater, because none of us have done this before. I believe in you, you believe in me, and let's go and get that done. I've often spoke about inspirational speeches. I do have a certain affinity for them, I will admit, right? And I've spoken about Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights and all this kind of thing. But it's absolutely critical. It's fundamental. It's absolutely vital. And I think from what I've seen and heard, Thomas Frank is also a bit of an orator as well. So let him breathe fire into these young men and let them come bursting out of the blocks and really give us something to be proud of.
Yeah, well, on that point, we're going to go for our next break of the show because T just brought it up. Let's see the new man in action in the dressing room. I got to say before we share this, I know there's been some out there that have been suggesting it's more of a PE teacher vibe rather than the aura that Ange brought to the club. And I do understand, Tej will know it from what he does in his day job. It's cinema, right? It's cinema. Some will love it, some will hate it.
But it's show business. This is entertainment, whether you like it or not. That's what it is. It is.
Let's hear from him. Let's hear from Thomas Frank in action. And we'll be back for our final break of this show.
Just wow. Honestly, wow. It's a good team. They are a good team with good players. And you totally fair, honestly, completely well-deserved win. Well done. Couple of things. 100 Premier League games for Naga. 200 games for Brentford, Ethan Pinnock. Oh. As you know, it's a full squad. We need everyone available, everyone being ready. Fabio, Igor doing very well, just coming in. Damson and Kevin had to be some finisher, hell of a finisher, making the 4-2 goals. So it's done. Very good. Thank you again, Ben. I know you want to play, and I know it's all that top professional. And the way I see all the bits you speak to all the centre backs and all that means the world. Just to let you know, it's not easy. So thank you very much for that. Yeehaw, Yamaha. What a player, guys. Let's get that music going. Come on, boys. Come on.
It's a different kind of vibe. It's a Thomas Frank vibe, right? And look, some will love it. Some will maybe find that maybe not for them. But at the end of the day, what you see there is very accustomed to what we saw with Ange in the latter stage of the Spurs dressing room, where all the boys were on side, right? The guys were gathered. They were on side. I think a really important point is that whatever you think, players loved him at Brentford. They did absolutely adored him. And again, I would say to you, if you're intrigued on what being said on the other side of the fence, go and check out some of even the Brentford podcasts. Like to Besotted, one of the most popular Brentford podcasts. They are gutted to be losing Thomas Frank. So this final part of the show, I just want to bring everybody up to date on what we're hearing in terms of the transfer market. Before I do, we have got over nearly 8,000 of you that are watching the show live. Again, thanks so much for all the incredible support for Last One of Spurs. Really do appreciate it. Keep liking, keep subscribing. A busy, busy week here. We're joined by the wonderful back home, happily, TJ Ramini. Back in the house, as is Marlon from the Spurs Kings. Probably not so happy. I've brought him back off the sunbed quickly. Sorry, Mars. We're working on it. And we've got George Achillea smiling away. Voice recovered and back in the building. Look, as we said, big job for Thomas Frank. Big next, of course, few weeks for Tottenham in terms of how they are going to manage and operate the market. Where I think, like we said here, there's a lot of work for Tottenham to do in regards to the window. And we'll come on to that now because we understand there has been several links to a number of players, but one link that is at the moment refusing to go away is that of Bryan Mbuemo. And we understand that Tottenham still retain a solid interest in the player, although it is said to be at the moment unlikely they will be able to prize him away from Manchester United. So it is one very much, I think, at the moment to keep an eye on. The issue that they've got is that it will cost up to 60 million to pursue this, with Man United also, as I've said, firmly in the battle. They'll offer probably double, triple the wages Tottenham will. But I think the key thing being here is that Thomas Frank likes him, would like to bring him to the club. I mean, I don't know whether you, George, have you ever done a situation where not only does a manager leave the football club, but also probably their best player follows them out the door to that respective club? I can't imagine or remember too many occasions that ever happening, G. Does anything come to mind? Trying to put you on the spot like this, but
no,
there's not many, is there, like this? It'd be very unique, I think, this situation if we did.
Normally, there's like a journeyman type player that they bring rather than the best attacking output players. So yeah, it would be a relatively new one.
Because on that basis, how likely, unlikely, G, would you see Mbuemo happening to Tottenham?
The problem is, I mean, I would absolutely adore it. I think it would be a great move. This guy's been phenomenal the last year or so, and I think if you really wanted to bring in a forward, then Marl said it earlier, we need to desperately upgrade our wingers. He knows Frank. His shooting ability is unbelievable. Like we said earlier about Brentford not having as many shots, but when they do, they go in. And let's be real, that's a great stat to have. We need that, and I think he'd be fantastic. The odds of it actually happening seem to be very difficult. I mean, for whatever reason, a lot of chatter about him basically only wanting United. And look, if he just wants to go because he purely wants the more money, then so be it. Move on. There's plenty of other targets. But I personally, if we're able to convince him or whatnot, and he wants to join, happy days all day long.
Yeah, I mean, just on that very quickly, guys, around the table on that, TG, you have the same opinion of George with regards to Mbuemo. Do you feel anything different on that? If Tottenham could prize him away?
No, I don't think anyone feels any different. He's a wonderful player, fabulously talented. He works very hard. He seems like a nice young man as well, which again I think makes a difference. I'm sure that's one of the reasons why Frank holds him in such high regard. 60 million doesn't seem like a lot of money. Wait, if he wants to go to Manchester United, who are terrible and can't offer him Champions League football, but they can double his wages, then off you go, mates. But I'd love to see him at the club. But if we do bring him in, then be done with Tell, be done with Solomon, like all the guys that we're kind of thinking, should we, shouldn't we? Just get rid of them. Let's just not bother and bring in somebody who's of proven quality. And listen, as far as Tell and everything goes, he's 19 years old, so we can go back and have a look at him in 3 or 4 years and make a decision then. But I'd love to bring him.
With no doubt with Tell, he probably ends up going on to become a world beater, triples his value, quadruples his value.
Yeah, sure.
You're right, T. It's a risk you have to take, right? It's a risk you have to take.
Exactly. Yeah. Thomas Frank wants Mbuemo. He's my new guy. Go get Mbuemo.
Yeah, and it'd be great. I mean, I said that, Miles. Do you agree? Have you ever known of too many circumstances at the top of your head where you can imagine not only does the manager lead the club, but also the star player follows them out in the same respective summer?
Probably Harry when he came back to us, support the phone, crouch back. Probably that's it. The only one I can really think of at the time. But with Mbuemo, look, I'm not saying pay him the wages, but what I'm about to say is what a lot of Spurs fans will talk about. This is the difference between a big club and a club that's steadily going, where Manchester United are so confident that it doesn't matter if Spurs and Man United go up against each other. Yes, Man United might have the history and all that, but Manchester United are going to pay him the wages and Spurs are not. And they're fully confident of that. And I think whether he wants to come to us or not, the wages that Man United are going to offer him compared to what we're going to offer him is always going to be the stumbling block. So we just have to kind of go from there. But look, it'd be wonderful. Look, I wanted him for 2 years. 2 years I wanted this guy.
Yep.
However, I just fully well know we're never going to match Manchester United. And that's why when it came to the Europa League final, if we never made that Europa League final, the summer would have been a lot worse than it was, because Manchester United will show the ambition where Tottenham will do what Tottenham do. So we're going to have to rely on, because if you look at it like this, if you were to offer a player now, Manchester United or Tottenham, Champions League is only guaranteed for this season. If they went and said, okay, what about 2-3 years time, which team are going to be sitting there trying to show ambition? And Man United have already signed Cunha, they're trying to sign Gyökeres and have Mbuemo on top as well. And it could, that they're trying to show that they are trying to move forward. Whereas you said earlier, Tottenham is still trying to find out who the bloody manager is. So look, we'll see where it goes, but we need to start moving and start acting.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is if Spurs want to be the big club and the Champions League club going forward, they're going to have to show that ambition, unfortunately, and the wage structure is going to have to change at some point, because you can see by the wages table where their teams are, and we just need to catch up to cut that gap.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, you can't get away from it. 42% of wages to revenue ratio. How can you compete on that basis? And I think, again, I think it does tie in why they've gone and got Thomas Frank, because I think for those that aren't aware, we're just showing this for the watching audience that are obviously on the show. Brentford's record against the Big Six, this is from the Premier League of 22-23. They're top of that table, 21 points, played 12. That kind of shows you the job Frank has done and masterminded against the top 6 sides. He's got an ability to get results against the very best sides. And I've got no doubt Tottenham will feel, well, listen, we're giving you better players to work with. Go and get those results. But it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as that. And again, I will come back onto that point. I said, probably the last episode, managing at Tottenham to managing at Brentford is 2 worlds apart. The exposure, not only just from a even press conference point of view, you're going from 10, 15 people in a room asking you questions to 30, 40 that are asking you the same questions that you saw and being asked every single week. So I think even that is going to be very interesting.
Rick, we are literally the most criticised club on social media. Literally.
Yeah. And he's got to get used to that. He's got to get used to that, hasn't he, Teach?
We are the most negatively criticised football team on earth. And he has to deal with that. And also, he's never done it before. I believe he can do it. I think he's a man of character and he has great support around him. But we can all play our part and help him. And I think that if, lots of things were proven to be so last season with regards the power that we can wield when we get behind a cause. And so, let's get behind this man and really show him the love and support that he is going to need, because he's never been in this position before. And I think it's vital that we show solidarity and unity.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Look, one final story that has been brought to our attention is that Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy has reportedly met with the representatives of Antoine Semenyo with regards to a possible summer transfer. Hold on to your hats here, guys. Bournemouth reportedly valued the player at 70 million. You've got to say that point. Could you just imagine Daniel Levy in that meeting finding out they value it at 70 million? He must have ran so fast for that meeting room. Could you imagine? Get me out of it! Get me out! Get me out! 70 million, which is understood to be a major barrier for any potential move. I think we actually brought this to where only a few days ago that Frank does want, as any coach would want, some control at Tottenham in regards to the form of transfers. We're led to believe he's going to have some form of it. Whether he gets the final decision is another question. I think there'll be, again, as we see, a collective group, a contingency group there. The likes of Johan Lange will be involved in that. And, of course, along with Thomas Frank with regards to deciding players. But, look, it's a player that you can't get away from it. He's been very, very good for Bournemouth. He scored, even looking at last season, managed more goals than Decky and Sonny combined. 13 goals in 42 matches under Iraola. Scored, when you look at the overall tally itself in front of goal, it's impressive. 20 goal contributions from the Ghanaian international. Really impressive return. Again, remains to be seen if you're able to attract that kind of player to the club. I mean, I think you said it earlier, Miles, with regards to wingers. Is that the kind of profile of winger Tottenham should be looking to identify and target? And that goes back to your point where at some point the money has to be of no object when it comes to certain player profiles. And as you said, they're going to have to break that wage structure at some point, right? They're going to have to, if they want to compete, like you said, like a big club should do.
Yeah. Look, 70 million for Semenyo seems a bit, even for me, it seems a bit too much. He's a good player and all. However, when I look at it, if he came, you've got to remember that he's not just performing what he's performed for Bournemouth, but you've got to remember his relationship with Solanke at Bournemouth and where Solanke got most of his goals from. So hopefully if a player like that will have that relationship with Solanke and produce more goals for Solanke for next season, because that was one criticism I think all of us had of Solanke. He didn't score as many goals as he did the year before at Bournemouth and didn't get himself in those positions because our wingers just weren't providing him the ball. But look, he's the sort of caliber player that Tottenham should be going after, the sort of winger, because his contribution last year was excellent for Bournemouth, and even Nilsson profited off of that. And so did Kluivert. Kluivert even profited off how well even Nilsson was. So as a front three, they were quite, when they were on form, they were quite deadly. But yeah, looking at it going forward, if we can get someone of that ilk just to come and take the burden off, well, if it's Son, then I've got nothing but that's the sort of player we need. For me, we need a winger that's going to help Solanke out next year because we just didn't have it this year.
Yeah, it's, again, going to be fascinating. I think, like you've said there very, very clearly, if Tottenham want to compete on, as they said, all four fronts, they're going to need to act like a club that can compete on all four fronts. So it does feel like it's a pivotal, again, moment in the road for Daniel Levy. You look back at some of the crazy stats out there. He sacked 13 managers up until the arrival, it will be, of Frank. And this is, again, number 14 in 24 years. I mean, it's just, on that ratio, it's under 2 years per manager. And I know, Miles, you did say you're quite confident it'll get to season 3, maybe, or season 4 without pressing the reset button. But, Ange, in some presses, were criticised a lot. I think the one thing Ange did say, which I know some people did or didn't like, was that at some point Tottenham have got to stick to a plan and stick to somebody. I know many felt at that time when he said that they shouldn't have been him. But he's right. At some point, we're going to have to get behind someone and really try and see a project through. I know that's why, G, for you, that you were probably in mourning because maybe you felt he deserved the 3rd season. But we do need stability now. We really do need someone that's going to come in and lay a pathway, not only for the young players, but who's going to come in and improve what we've got. And I do think Frank will do that. So, look, before we close, it's a new era, right? I mean, how confident are you, Tej? It goes back to what you actually said earlier to close on this show. Is it about having a fast start? Because I think one of the interesting things under Frank is when you look at his actual starting management at his last couple of clubs, I think where he was previous to Brentford, he didn't win at Bromby any of his first 8 games. And he lost 8 of his first 10 at Brentford. So how much patience do you think Tej will need to be shown in the earlier period? I want to say to you, in his first game is a competitive Super Cup final.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really important is that the players adapt and adopt his mentality quickly. Again, we're all feeling emotional about what's transpired over the last couple of weeks. Can we imagine how those players are feeling? So again, they are going to have to suspend those feelings. Again, these are young men. It's much harder for them to do it than it is for those of us who've had a little bit more time in the saddle, but they have to do it. Like, park that to the side, give your support and your allegiance to this new manager, who is a tactical genius by all accounts and really knows the game and knows what he's talking about. So adapt immediately. As far as the results go, like if we lose a couple of games, that's okay. Again, we're Tottenham. It's not like we're not used to seeing that. But if we do lose a couple of games, go down in the right manner. Go down in the play the way that the manager wants you to play. Play for each other. Play with pride. Play for the fans. Play for the badge. All that kind of thing. And the results should take care of themselves. I, like Marlon said, like George said, like Patrick has been saying on the WhatsApp groups, I would rather he started slower and finished better. That's what I'd like to see. I would just like to see a healthy, happy transition from one manager to the next, and hopefully seeing happy and hopeful players playing a brand of football that excites the fans, but also looks like we could compete on 4 separate fronts. That's what I'd like to see. Amen.
Tej, been a pleasure to have you back. We are just listen. We're going to get Tej involved throughout the summer, but I also am conscious that we've got to get him ready for the Champions League next season. So we've got to polish him off and put him back on the top tier of the European football pundit shelf, which we're going to work.
I'll be ready. That's I'm very much looking forward to seeing you more, mate. And listen, my thanks as ever, brother. I'm a huge fan of yours, not just as one of my dear friends. I love you a lot, as you know. But mate, this project, this great show that you work so tirelessly to maintain a superb quality. Guys, I'm going to say to you as well, please do like, share, subscribe, all that kind of thing. I know it can be tedious, constantly asked to please like this, but my goodness, what a service Last Word on Spurs is to all of us. Again, I met so many of you when I was back home in London. It meant the world to me. So please show Ricky some love and support just by liking, subscribing, all that kind of thing. Who wouldn't want to watch this show or listen to this show? So my love to you, brother. To you boys, fantastic being on the show with you, Marlon. Lovely to see you. George, a real pleasure for our maiden voyage. I thought it went really nicely. I look forward to many more. And to the viewers and the listeners, my love to you all. I'll see you soon.
Bless you. I mean, just also as we're closing this point, Miles, asking you the same question around that start for Frank. You know, it's going to be really important, as Chief said there in his open or ending piece. Got to get those players on side very early on, right? In terms of, I'm sure he will. I think that's the one thing that he's a very likable chap. And when you watch again and listen back to the podcast, I implore you to go and do so with Frank. Seems to get a real bond with players very, very early. And that might be the perfect influence for a dressing room that has just lost somebody they all deeply care about. And we've seen that from the influx of messages Ange has received from the playing squad, bar Jed Spence and Christian Romero at this stage of recording, Miles.
Yeah, no, I look at it as the football players are like children. Like, because 1 minute they hate you, next minute they'll love you. So he's got nothing. He's just
they are children. They are.
Children.
They're like 20, dude. They're children.
And this is the issue. Like they're all like this now. Give Frank his first game and they're all playing, and Frank tells them, like he's done in the changing with the guy, where you can see the smile on his face. Yeah, he'll go tell one of them, "Oh my God, Ethan, you're brilliant. You're this, that, and the other." He'll go around all of them telling them how good they are. They'll be like how I was in the last show. Ange who? Because this is what it's all about. They've got a football career. They've just lost one. They'll move on to the next. It's typical football. So I'm just going to sit there and say, look, half of them have had not just one manager since being at Tottenham. They've had 3 or 4. They'll move on. They'll get on to the next. When Ange came in and when some lost Conte and when some lost Mourinho, some of them were saying the exact same stuff. Not all of them. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot more coming out this time. But like I said earlier, when you see the transition, what's going from Ange to Frank is going to be, there's so much similarities to it that I don't think it's going to be absolutely massive. So, look, don't worry. They'll get there. They'll get over it. And once they get that first game out of the way and they go, oh, I actually like playing this way, they'll move on.
Yeah. Miles, absolute pleasure. Spurs Kings TV, they'll be providing a lot during this period as well. I'm sure Ash is doing a lot of analytical Ash with players, and as he is. Ash's show will get started about 3 a.m. now, and Ash, we go to bed and Ash wakes up.
I'll be asleep. I'll be on the sleep.
Perfect time for TJ, that show, isn't it? Mid-afternoon for those out there in California. We're all in bed and Ash is just getting going. I mean, I know we're late, but Jesus Christ, bless his heart. We love Ash. We love you both. Miles, thank you so much. Spurs Kings TV, please go over there, give them a like, give them a subscribe, please. Miles, be back on for more.
And don't forget, we're doing in next month, we're doing a content award show, and we're literally gonna. So we're celebrating all Tottenham creators, every single one of them. And there is a form to fill out, and you only have to go fill in, but make sure, because Last Word on Spurs is on there, and we're going to give out awards to all the great Spurs channels over this year. We've got a Europa League win. It's been a tough season. Let's celebrate everybody. So, and George is on there too. So I'll put the link out there. If you come over to Spurs Kings TV,
somehow.
Over there. You're in there, mate. Everyone needs to be celebrating this community, and that's what it's all about. It's just something fun to do, and it's absolutely brilliant. So please make sure, I'll get the link out. It's on my X. It's not on Instagram yet. I'll put it out over the next week, and it's on the YouTube channel in the community section. But yeah, and make sure you vote for Last Word on Spurs in their categories.
Bless you. Miles, you're a superstar. G, close us on this point. Thomas Frank could bring home Tottenham's second trophy in the space of 3-4 months. It could be an unbelievable start to the season. But, again, on that point, PSG, I think they'll be out of real kilter for that. Jason keeps telling me. Jason's adamant we're going to be bringing that trophy home. But, I mean, how important is that point of getting in that dressing room very early on, establishing those connections, those relations, as we've touched upon, and really building that bond with this group of players that, like we've all touched upon, have gone for a crazy last couple of weeks as a group?
100%. And look, he will do it. Frank he's an unbelievable communicator. He just comes across as an unbelievably nice human being. And I think, look, there are a lot of similarities between what Ange tried to do or did versus what Frank does. There's just like Marlon was saying earlier, there's just a little bit more to it. There's a bit more on the defensive side of things. They both like to press high up the pitch. They both press with 2 forwards. So I don't think it's going to take much adapting from the players going from Ange to Frank. I think Frank he seems to have a little bit extra that he likes to focus on the little bits as well when it comes to like set pieces. Is these fine margins, I think he seems to focus on more. Whereas Ange told us a lot at the beginning that we need to get the principles in first and the fine margins will come later. So I think Frank is a great communicator. I think he's going to do a good job of winning the players over. Hopefully, he does that to bring players in as well. I know Ange's pull was insane in the transfer market when we didn't think would sign certain players. But yeah, look, if he can come away somehow with a Super Cup win, bearing in mind, as you were alluding to there before, PSG just had the Champions League. A lot of the players were in the international. A lot of them were playing in that final in the Nations League. Yeah. They've got the Club World Cup as well. If they go far in that, that's a month before the Super Cup, let alone like an actual pre-season. They're going to be knackered. There's a chance that we could come away with another trophy, and that is very, very exciting. It's still a slim chance because PSG are an incredible team.
They've got amazing players. They have
ridiculous. The level they've got,
and the manager. I have to say, great guy.
Completely. And you were talking about earlier about egos in the teams and stuff. He's done an incredible job of getting rid of egos at PSG and starting with quite a young team. And it's actually quite greedy with how many winners they've got. I don't mind taking a couple of those off their hands if they'll allow us. But no, I think I think it's going to be a really entertaining game nonetheless. And fingers crossed we come away with that trophy as well. And great start to Thomas Frank's tenure. And yeah, just really happy to be back on discussing this and being able to actually speak with a proper voice and not some low.
Not Rod Stewart. Not Rod Stewart.
No, not my broken side. So yeah, no, thanks for having me on, man. It's always a pleasure. And again, you say with you guys and TJ, first time us actually being on a pod together. So yeah, it's great, and everyone in the chat as well. Keep it up.
G, you're a superstar. Loving you as always, guys. Listen, there you go. That is your latest Tottenham update. And the next time we come to you, we may finally have a head coach installed. I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful audience as always for tuning in, for listening. I've got to say the support for the show. As always, you guys are amazing out there. We can't thank you enough. Honestly, unbelievable support for Last Word on Spurs. And we're going to pin what Mars has told us about the Spurs awards. It gives everybody a chance early on to go and win a trophy before Tottenham go in there. Another one, of course. I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful actor, TJ Ramini. TJ is back on our screens. We've got to manage him carefully with flexibility and adaptability for what's to come over the course of the summer. Mars from the Spurs Kings in the background doing some working for us. We appreciate it, Mars. Thank you so much. And the wonderful George Achillea. Make sure you go and check George across all the socials. Guys, we have been the Last Word on Spurs. And to be frank, it's where we're going next. From us all, please keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.